It's not inflation, it is corporate greed. This is something that I have been hearing a lot lately, even a new phrase called upflation, but I am here to tell you in this video that is a very misinformed view. Now, some people are simply ignorant to the matter, and I totally get that, but others have willfully chosen to accept a false narrative, or at the very least, not look into it. And I understand why, because other people have used certain points to weaponize and make their own point for stuff. So I understand, but I really do hope that this video can explain some things to you. Now, let me just get this out of the way. I really hope you understand this by now. The corporations, they say it's the government. The government says it's the corporations. They go back and forth, and welcome to the beginning of time. If you haven't checked out our economic lessons, I think you'll enjoy. I'm gonna keep my hands on the wheel though, you gotta be careful. But here's the deal. Why I'm saying that, and I hope you get that, the corporations say it's the government says it's the corporations, because if you haven't noticed, the only person getting screwed by all of it is you. You have to pay your taxes to the government, you still buy your necessary items from these corporations. So hopefully you see I am on your side, and I hope all of us could be on each other's side, you know, as citizens in this great country. But I really want you guys to understand this, because you will see that when it's all said and done, this inflation that we're going through, it is a cause of the government, and it's both Republican and Democrat. And that's why, you know, I hope that people get more informed so that we could hold people accountable to hopefully get back to a society where they got $1 tacos at Jack in the Box. You know what I'm saying? How come Costco But yeah, let's begin. So where do I begin? I guess if the corporations aren't responsible for the inflation, then who is? I truly believe it is the government. Now, I think the reality of the situation, it is both governments and the corporation. The view that I really think is ignorant is to say it is only the corporations, because quite frankly, even if they're all over the world, they are too small. And this is the first point that you really got to understand. Companies and corporations are a drop in the bucket compared to the government and government spending and activity. So Kellogg's, you know, you've been hearing about cereal going up and the price of all these. And I encourage you to go look at all of these different companies. If you go take the market cap of Kellogg's, meaning if you took the current share price and then all of the shares that existed and you wanted to buy the whole entire company, it would be worth about $29 to $39 billion. I got to double check. I'm not in front of a computer right now. But that's a lot of money. However, I want you to now look at the latest bond auction. 2-year, 10-year, 15-year. This is the government, the Treasury, selling bonds to raise money for the government budget. And every bi-weekly, every 2 weeks, the government is selling anywhere from $20 to $48 billion on a specific tenure. So what that means, and if you even go look at the amounts, on some weeks we've sold as much as 200, 300, even in the Euro, in Europe, the EU, they just had one of their biggest records for bond sales at around like $400 billion in a week. So compare that to the size of these companies. I'm telling you, what the government could sell and money that they're raising, the debt that they sell, and think about it, they take, what do you think they do with that money? They spend it and they apply it to stuff. And that's going to lead us to the next part of the equation. But you really have to realize step number one, yeah, corporations are big. And this is what I'm saying. It's both. It is both the corporations and the government, and both of them want you to believe it's the other guy so that they could both get away with taxing you more and then charging you more. But when it's all said and done, the government is the big one. The way, simple analogy, you know, I like analogies. The corporations are the lakes, and some of these corporations, they're the Mississippi River, my friend. But these lakes all lead into the ocean, and the government is the ocean. When it comes to government spending, again, even the United States of America, nobody comes close to spending that much money. So I hope you're feeling me on this point, because it's sometimes pretty tough for people to understand, because it's like, yeah, these companies are all selling you stuff, and you would think they would be responsible for a lot, but when it's all said and done, the government is raising and spending more money than any of these guys ever will. And like, if you really want to know how much they're making, go look at their margins. You could go look at these company filings and you can see how much they're profiting. Now, I will tell you, is that deceptive to a degree? Yeah, because it's not like margins have gone insane, but corporations, especially the big ones, just like the government, they are notorious for blowing money frivolously, meaning their margins would be a lot higher if they didn't pay their buddies and spend money on certain things that they didn't really need. But again, all of that stuff leads to them justifying, oh yeah, inflation, oh yeah, we got to raise prices. And think about it, where are the corporations? What makes them an easy target to blame? And I'm not saying they're innocent. The CEO pay, they get a lot of money, and that right there could be concealing, operating expenses. It could be concealing how much these companies are really making. So first part, you got to understand, why is it not the corporations causing inflation? Are they part of it? Yes, it is in conjunction with the government. That is the main conclusion. But simply, the government activity with money, both raising and spending it, it is way bigger than when in a month, in 6 months, than some of these companies are worth entirely right here, right now. So point number 2 now. My arm was getting tired. I had to switch up the view. But this is what you have to realize. Yeah, the governments raise money. Corporations, they do a lot. Yeah, they raise prices. But I want you to think about demand now. Why? Because think about it. During the pandemic, or when inflation was rising up, what did everybody say? They're like, oh, the chips, we ran out of chips. That's why the price is going up. Everybody wants these items. Everybody wants these items. Demand, too little supply. We closed the economy. That's what led to inflation. Massive supply. It was all demand and not being enough supply. That's why people justified every single price increase. But hold on, I gotta get rid of that guy. But I want you to think about that. Where does the demand come from? And once again, are you important as a consumer? Yeah, but you're not that important. And this is the problem, because corporations and governments are the biggest source of demand. Yes, so when the government sells all this money and raises, just as much as Kellogg's is worth, in a day, what do they do with that money? They spend it. They go and invest it into other people's wars. They invested into paying government employees. And what I'm saying, you could go look this up, even on the non-farm payrolls, whether you believe them or not. Go look. Where do you think the biggest source of job gains usually comes from on a month-to-month basis? It's government jobs, my friend. The government is paying people to work. Again, if you go look at structuralism and industrialism throughout the 50s all the way to today, even neoliberalism, this is common for governments to be a big source of employment, and that is how you could complete a lot of agendas and make sure that everything is running smoothly. So government provides a huge demand, but when they raise this money, they go and spend it. So you're like, man, all this inflation, oh, there's not enough items, people are doing this. Well, yeah, the government is probably a bigger, depending on what it is, the government's not buying Hershey bars, but guess what? They buy Hershey bars. You should go look it up. They buy candy. They buy all the random things you would think about, but in a lot of industries, the government is contributing to a lot of demand. Yes, here even in America, it doesn't have to be China. But now I want you to look at the other part. Where are the corporations in trouble? And well, think about it. Corporations buy from other corporations. Even worse, go look at what happened with shipping. You remember during the pandemic, and right now it fluctuates, even with the Red Sea drama. That's been changing a lot back and forth, but you got to think about it. Corporations, when they start buying, and yeah, they're a big source of demand, they got to ship it, they got to transport it. Corporations are usually responsible for all the transports. I'm driving by these big ass semi trucks right now. Who do you think is hiring these guys? Most of it's corporations. So corporations buying from each other, that is another source of demand. So do you get the second point here? It's like, where is this inflation coming from? Is it corporate greed? Or is it that you have behemoths of governments and behemoths of corporations, and they're actively buying and buying and buying, and that is increasing demand by such a big margin that it's contributing to inflation rising in many areas. And that right there is one big point that I think a lot of people overlook, and hopefully you're seeing it. The point where I'm saying with all of this, even this whole video, it's not just the company charging you more money. It's not just the government, taxing you, and there's certain, it's so deep, and this is why I love macroeconomics, but it is such a big dynamic. And again, I guess my credentials, I should have started this in the beginning, but remember, it was 2020 before inflation even happened, and I told you how to get rich off of it, and it was understanding some of these concepts, and that leads us here to the final point. So the third and final point with all of this is, why do we have inflation, and what is a major cause? It is both corporations and the government. But here's the deal, this is why I kind of blame the government more. The big thing is the increase in money supply. This is part of that video I showed you guys in 2020 that I was just talking about there, but you have more money just floating around than ever before. There's more of these $100 bills. Man, there's even bills digitally now, the Bitcoins, all this stuff, but the government was responsible for issuing a lot of currency. It doesn't matter what side of the administration, Republican, Democrat, that you align with. Fact of the matter, they both did it, and even right now, even coming into the next election, both of them, they are committed to doing both more. Both Biden and Trump, they're gonna keep spending money, and they both have plans to. And sadly, the way that we are with policies now and the public and everything else, and someone brought this point up in the chat, it's a very good point. It's like, unfortunately, if you don't want to spend money and you're like, no, we're going to be conservative and not do these services and all that, it's political suicide. Oh shit, I just rolled down the window on accident. But the point is, it's political suicide. You're not going to get people to support you if you're not going to support their interest groups, spend money. And that's why I'm like, I hope we as a society could rein in on this and support more fiscal conservatism, whatever you want to call it, man. But the point is, these governments plan to spend more, and they already did since 2020, when this, you didn't know about inflation until then. When I made that video talking about inflation, it was a relatively new concept, even though it existed. The CPI for years never went up at all. And this is where you got to really think about it, because it's like, this all happened after we started dumping a lot of money. So is it one about giving all the money? And think about it, guess what they did? They gave the money to corporations, payrolls, and corporations, they benefited the more. It's easier to get free money during the pandemic if you were a big corporation than if you were a small person. Yeah, you got it deposited, but if you already filed taxes, you already played the game, you're a big company, they hooked you up. Why do you think the McDonald's and Amazons of the world and Walmarts, they only got stronger when it was all said and done? But now go back, they also increased some of that demand, and yeah, they've raised their margins and they're big, but the government got bigger and the corporations got bigger, and everybody got money as the money supply literally ballooned. That was one part of it, but now look at the other part. Even if they weren't handed money, this is where Jerome Powell, the Federal Reserve, comes into play. They have a role to play in this, and they're kind of to blame, because guess what they did? They kept the rates very low for a long time. I was even telling you, I had a video in 21, I said all these YouTubers are lying. They were telling you in 2021, real estate market is gonna crash. I said, no way in hell, it's only gonna get crazier, and rates were still low then. You still had money for 0% on the interest rate in 2021. Houses were still rocketing up. You could have got a 3%, 4% mortgage then. It was insane. But then again, corporations, they took out big loans. Ironically, this is the weird part, because like I'm telling you how the government sells all that money, right? They sell those bonds to raise money. They didn't even sell as much as they are now when the rates were lower, and they could have paid it back at a lower rate than now. But that's a whole nother point. But the point is, Jerome Powell and the Fed, they kept rates artificially low for a very long time, and that increased more demand, and that demand just follows back into point number 2. So, Chattadonia, I really hope you guys are feeling me on this, and I hope I don't bother any of you guys too much. And like I'm saying, my point with all of this is so that you become smarter on this topic, and it is us, baby. Like, seriously, I don't care what you believe in, bro, but like this little game of like corporate, in corporations and governments, and bro, think about it, man. I'm a person. Yeah, do I have a corporation? I have an LLC. I got an S Corp. I have all of that, but bro, I'm a little guy compared to all of these. I've done well, and I think God is good, man. I'm really, really blessed, but come on, there's a reason. Bloomberg bans me. I get attacked by dudes like Benzinga and just like weird stuff, even in the stock market world. It's like, you know, we all have to work together. And I'm not saying that we need to be all best friends, but like this whole division stuff and understanding, like I'm telling you, the game plan is the governments blame the corporations blame the government, and you're like, oh, which side do I go with? Or, okay, that's a good point, but then I don't want to support that side. You know what I'm saying? But sadly, it's like you, the consumer, us, me, we are in the middle of all of it, and we are the one paying the consequences. So if you want, I encourage you to learn more. I think you should join some of our economic lessons. They're free 99, baby, on the watch list. But when it's all said and done, I really want you guys to understand this, because we may have a couple more years of this, and depending on how things play and policy and rates, it's going to create opportunities. And that's why I'm telling you, moving forward, the best strategy financially, it is to own assets. Not all assets, and don't buy them at the highs, and you see how dangerous that could be, but you have to find a balance in real owning things, having a little bit of cash, and diversification over the next few years. That is going to take you a long, long way. So, Chattadonia, that is all I have. I hope you enjoyed the driving video. I know some of y'all wanted that, so I got you, baby. But I'm going to go enjoy now the rest of my day. Happy 4th of July, baby, America. And that's what I was saying, man. We got to work together, bro. But if you have any questions, let me know. If you have any respectful counters and you want to, like, dive deeper, I got you too, man. Let's talk about this. But I really encourage you to look up all of these points that we brought up. So enjoy your day. God bless you. I love you. And peace out. Horn.